Hello, old friend. Believe it or not, the successor to the PlayStation had musings all the way back in 1994. In fact, development started later that year, during an unspecified time during development. Some employees at Argonaut Games, the guys who worked on X and Star Fox, were under contract for their semiconductor manufacturer LSI Corporation. LSI meaning large-scale integration, as in the integration of circuits with tens of thousands of transistors, and instructed to design a rendering chip for their console. However, Jez San, which was short for Jeremy Elliott San, founder of Argonaut, recalled that his team had no direct contact with Sony during the development process. However, unbeknownst to him, Sony was designing their own chip in-house and had instructed other companies to design rendering chips merely to diversify their options. A year later in 1995, May 3rd to be exact, an industry technical group formed from 5 computer companies: IBM, Apple, Compaq, Hewlett-Packard, and Microsoft issued a press release stating that they would only accept a single format after an onslaught of optical discs, as they had video CD, multimedia compact disc, and super density disc. The computer companies threatened to boycott until there was a single standard format. Recruiting the then president of IBM, Lou Gerstner, to pressure the executives of the warring factions. Then, in one compromise, Multimedia Compact Disc and Super Density adopted the proposal that specified that both layers of the dual-layer disc would be read from the same side, instead of having a disc that users would have to turn over. However, Philips and Sony insisted on the source code made for the multimedia CD, but there was a drawback: a loss of 5 to 4.7 gigabytes of capacity. The result, a single-layered DVD would have 4.7 gigabytes, and a double-layered would have 8.5 gigabytes, which meant in the end, both technologies were in the disc. And the format's details were finalized on December 8th of 1995. So the digital video disc, or digital versatile disc, was born, or DVD. Then by early 1997, around the same time where PlayStation took off because of a price drop, and also a delay for Zelda 64, the press was reporting that a new PlayStation was being developed and would have backward compatibility with the original PlayStation, a built-in DVD player, and internet connectivity. But of course, they decided to deny said successor was coming, even though they were right on the money. But in fact, this would be the second only console to have backwards compatibility since the Atari 7800. This was also the same year that Kutaragi was promoted to CEO to Sony Computer Entertainment of America. At that point, the then president of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe, Chris Deering, had to witness a degree of trepidation among Sony leaders to produce a console which would capture or exceed the success of their predecessor. Then, on March 2nd of 1999, Sony officially announced the PlayStation 2, a console with immeasurable potential, to the point that Teyu Goto, one of the creators of its design, made it black to represent the infinity of the universe, and it glowed blue to represent the intelligence and its life spouting out. Well, up, but I think of it as out. Its controller, the DualShock 2, had no difference in its appearance, but it actually weighed more by about 3 ounces. Most of the buttons were pressure sensitive, In fact, 256 levels of pressure. This controller was also forward compatible, which meant it was compatible with future PlayStation models, and could actually function with the original PlayStation. Now that's what I call a good machine. After their great success because of third-party support and great development kits, Kutaragi was made even higher in the hierarchy, being made CEO and president of Sony Computer Entertainment, the entire division, but was developing a reputation that was less than savory in Japanese culture, gaining the nickname of Crazy Ken, demonstrating narcissistic tendencies about piracy that are akin to "there is no war in Ba Sing Se." Dude, they showed you they were doing it right in front of you. You can't deny forever. They need to make medication for narcissism. Seriously. Despite his scandalous behavior, you cannot deny he is a visionary and was the master negotiator for all the third-party companies. He was equal parts admired and feared. When it comes to the PlayStation 1, he had to cut a few corners. But for the PlayStation 2, he wasn't going to skimp on his entertainment machine 1 inch. He insisted that the new machine be able to play DVDs, but Sony was wary because of the declining sales of their CD players. Despite the fact that Noria Oga, Mr. Father of CDs himself, said to go on with the project. The biggest challenge, however, was finding the right technology for the machine in an era where technology was evolving at an incredible rate. In the end, they sided with Toshiba, teaming up to work on the Emotion engine, as the machine was capable of rendering faces and models with emotions. Teiyu Goto supplied the look of the console. Kutaragi wanted a console that appealed to everyone, but not one that necessarily looked like something that was already on the market. So when in doubt, look at other industries. Apparently, Atari was getting into computing, and he cited that the Falcon 30 microbox was in fact the inspiration for his design. And they acquired this because of Atari shifting focus to the development of the Jaguar. Now, if you guys are following along, we have the Nintendo PlayStation and the Atari PlayStation 2. Well, another man's failure is another man's win. The last piece of the console puzzle came when Kutaragi visited South Korea. He discovered that instead of them playing video games on the console, they like to play on the computer, favoring massive multiplayer online role-playing games, or MMOs, paying monthly fees to keep playing. That gave him the idea that on his console, he could instead not just have games, but also music and movies to watch as well. Sounds vaguely familiar, doesn't it? It's almost like ideas are cyclical. The only problem with this idea is that it would require constant updates via memory cards. That technology just wasn't there yet. But after that first reveal, it shook the entire gaming industry. Sega was currently at a loss because they currently had an inferior console. Nintendo was forced to talk about their next console after they just released Ocarina of Time. This was also when Pokemon was just getting started. This was the point where Project Dolphin and PlayStation 2 were duking it out in the minds of gamers. And this would be the second renewal for Sony as a brand. Especially when the PlayStation 2 had its second reveal at the Tokyo Game Show. And every feature took center stage, including its 8 megabyte memory cards. They showed the DualShock 2, then the console described as modern and sober, which could be placed upright or horizontal. Then they dropped their release date of March 4th of 2000 for Japan only first, having a price tag that was higher than the Dreamcast at the time. Then their jaws dropped when they learned that the console could produce 60 million polygons a second, a claim that was very unbelievable at the time, promising the biggest console launch in Japan's history, giving everyone the ability to play DVDs right out of the box, with 100 games coming in the first year of the launch. Naturally, excitement for the console was at a fever pitch. At around that time, Sony Computer Entertainment of America allocated $150 million to advertise this machine. That was unheard of at the time, as even Nintendo only used $15 million to advertise the Nintendo 64. This was going to be a huge gamble for the company, putting all their faith on Kutaragi and his team. Then another challenger entered the ring, Microsoft, where rumors of the Xbox started buzzing. Then all worries were dashed when Square announced a ton of games, many of which that were exclusive to the PlayStation 2. The fact is, for many developers, where Square went, they went. After that event, PlayStation 2 pre-orders had a frequency so big that it crashed the website because of no less than 600,000 simultaneous connections. And that was from the first minute of opening pre-orders. Yeah, Kutaragi had a massive hit on his hands. The irony is that there might have been not enough consoles to supply all those pre-orders. When that console launched on March 4th, 2000, the streets were so full that the police had to get involved. It is safe to say that this console was legendary. In fact, in just the first 2 days, Sony sold 2 million units. North America got it October 26th, Europe got it November 24th, Australia got it November 30th, and everywhere else got it after December 2001. As for this beautiful machine's lifespan, well, it lasted 12 years! It lasted for 2 generations of consoles. One of the longest lifespans for any video game console. Now that we have the console, let's go make the game.